Good morning. I'm Joan Doyle, and I serve on the board of the DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. I welcome everyone to our service this morning and welcome visitors to our open and inclusive community of faith. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another as we each explore these paths. I would also like to especially welcome our guests and welcome again those who have visited us before. Visitors, it is the custom of our congregation to invite you to stand and give your name and where you're from if you feel comfortable doing so. Are there any visitors who would like to introduce themselves? Okay. Well, everyone, please join us after the service for coffee hour. We'd love to have a chance to get to know everyone better. Our minister, Reverend Tom Capo, our congregational life coordinator, Mary Law, and all of our members are eager to meet you. Our service can be heard outside the glass door at the back of the sanctuary, should anyone feel the need to leave the service for any reason. There are chairs provided for your convenience. Please refer to your order of service for announcements. Don't forget to turn off your cell phone, and that's it.
I light the chalice today because the injustice is anywhere where it is a threat to justice anywhere.
Good morning. I am Steve Cooper, the Director of Religious Education at this church. Today we are celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and through the collaboration of the Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry Task Force, of which I'm a part, we created this service to share with you another part of Dr. King's legacy. Martin Luther King Jr.'s story is well known and extends from the struggle to end racism and segregation in America to the ending of wars between nations, and it seems only fitting on the occasion of the holiday celebrated in his name that we pay tribute to the full extent of his contributions. As Martin Luther King learned from Gandhi's effort to free India, those in the disability rights movement learned from Dr. King how to go about righting wrongs and addressing social injustice. His words actions, and tactics serve as a role model for the broader civil rights movement, which also includes disability and inclusion rights. We are familiar with the most famous quotes from his I Have a Dream speech on the Washington Mall. But those words represent only a fraction of that which inspires civil rights activists around the world. His wisdom, as expressed in his many speeches and writings, gave proof to the interconnectivity of all segments of the civil rights movement. Dr. King said that nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral questions of our time. The need for man to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to oppression and violence. Man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. During the latter years of Martin Luther King's life, he had started speaking against the war and poverty, regardless of race. He also fought to change rights for the 54 million Americans who have one or more disabilities. In his 39 years of life, he accomplished more than most of us will ever achieve, breaking down barriers between races and stereotypes. Dr. King helped promote civil rights issues for Americans with disabilities and gained national attention towards the subject. He impressed the mentality upon society that separate is not equal. At one point in time, people with apparent disabilities were prohibited to be seen in public in order to prevent the sensitivities of people without disabilities. In the 1960s, Americans with disabilities were still being sterilized against their will. Today, most of us would cringe at the thought of treating people with disabilities in such a way. Like the African Americans who sat in at segregated lunch counters and refused to move to the back of the bus, people with disabilities sat in federal buildings, obstructed the movement of inaccessible buses, and marched through the streets to protest injustice. And like the civil rights movement before it, the disability rights movement sought justice in the courts and in the halls of Congress. Activists with disabilities even crawled up the steps of the national Capitol because it was the only way that they could get into the building.
We are members of society, and we deserve the same rights as everybody else in society. We have a right to be able to work and raise families and get on and off the bus and on and off trains like everybody else.
We need a death purpose. We go 1-1. We need one.
The act has the potential to become one of the great civil rights laws of our generation.
When do you want it? Now! You want to take a break? All night if I have to. I'm free!
The Senate is passing. The President has endorsed it. Our time has come. Pass this bill now.
Let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down.
Equal opportunities should be available to all shapes, sizes, ethnicity, disabled or able-bodied. The disability rights movement to this day can still be promoted and fought for by people with and without disabilities. Dr. King did his part by spreading awareness of the status and treatment of people with disabilities. Now we must foresee that his hard work is not forgotten. Human equality should not be neglected. So we, as a church, are starting by looking inward to determine what areas we need to improve our accessibility and inclusiveness. So I have a story that I'd like to share, and I would like for all of our young or young at heart that are willing to come forward to come sit on the floor in front of the pulpit. And we can bring forward a chair if there's any that cannot sit on the floor. And most people that have kids under the age of 12 probably know who Gerald and Piggy are. So we'll tell the story about Gerald and Piggy.
Gerald, I am so happy. Today is the best day of the year.
Today is Free Ice Cream Day.
No, today is Happy Pig Day.
Happy Pig Day?
Yes, Happy Pig Day, the day of the pig. It is the best day to have a pig party. It is the best day to sing pig songs. It is the best day to dance pig dances. It is the best day to eat pig food. It is the best day to play pig games. It is the best day to say, oinky, oink, oink. That means Happy Pig Day in pig.
Oh, I did not know about Happy Pig Day.
Look. Oinky, oink, oink. All my friends are here. Oinky, oink, oink. Oinky, oink, oink.
That's a lot of pigs.
Oinky, oink, oink. Oinky, oink. Oink. Isn't this great, Gerald? Gerald? Are you okay?
I'm sorry, Piggy. I have a trunk, and I have big ears, and I'm gray, and I don't have a snout. I don't have hooves. I'm not pink. I want to say Happy Pig Day and pig, but I'm not a pig. I'm an elephant, and I do not belong.
Oh, Gerald. Happy Pig Day is not just for pigs. Happy Pig Day is for anyone who loves pigs. What do you say to that?
I say, oinky, oink, oink.
Happy Pig Day to everyone. Oink, 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 oink.
So I have some questions for you. What do you think this story is about? Yes.
Pig and he had a trunk with ears.
So Gerald was different than Piggy. Ellie, did you want to share?
The story is about sharing and making sure other people are included.
All right, Hazel.
Making sure everybody has fun.
All right, so what do you think that Piggy meant to exclude Gerald from the fun? Harper, what do you think?
No.
No? What do you think, Ellie?
No.
Okay, well then, did Piggy understand why Gerald was upset?
Yes.
So do you think, so Piggy might have understood why Gerald was upset? So once, a little bit later in the story, after she went and talked to Gerald, she understood why. Do you think Gerald had to be a pig to celebrate Pig Day? Ivy, what do you think?
No.
Can you tell us a little bit more of why you think no?
I don't think Gerald needed to be a pig because Piggy said it was for everyone, and sometimes you just have to see how it's like for other people.
What do you think, Hazel?
No, because there were squirrels dressing up as pigs.
Yeah. So to relate this story to what we're talking about today, I would say that Gerald does not need to be a pig to celebrate Pig Day. It turns out that being a friend sometimes means stepping into their world a little bit. This allows you to understand their experience and celebrate what is special and unique about them. So what could Gerald and Piggy have done to keep Gerald from being sad? What do you think, Ellie?
Including him.
Including him? Harper?
Telling him right away that Happy Pig Day doesn't need only pigs to be in it.
So if Piggy would have given Gerald more information up front and said, oh, you don't have to be a pig to enjoy Pig Day, because how is Gerald supposed to know? Because when Piggy's friends showed up, they were all in their pig costumes.
I think Gerald didn't understand because if you say Pig Day, you think it's for pigs.
Right, right. Hazel.
He could have told them that there were squirrels.
Yep, let them know. So pretty much what needs to happen is that you need to let people know what your needs are. And you need to be willing to give more information about things that might not be obvious to other people. So you kind of need to, sing out and let people know. So I think some of you guys have a song to sing. So those of you that are going to sing, you stay up here. The rest of you, you can go back in your seats and you'll get to join in to sing in a little bit. So the kids are going to start singing and the words are going to show up, and there'll be a part where it says congregation. That's where you guys get to join in and help sing.
You can do what you want. The opportunity's on. And if you can find a new way, you can do it today. You can make
find a new way. You can do it today. You can make it all true. And you can make it all new. Ah, it's easy. Ah, you only need to know. If you want to sing out, sing out. And if you want to be free. 'Cause there's a million ways to be. You know that there are. You know there are. You know that there are. You know there are. You know that there are.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Karen Seymour Ells, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about how our church became aware of and involved in AIM. AIM is the Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry, and I wanted to give you a basic idea of what it can do and is doing for our congregations. And I'm going to share this little story with you first. 2 years ago, for reasons that are lengthy and complicated, involving lightning storms, a poor work-life balance on my part, and shoes that were fabulous, but I should have known better than to try to travel in, I found myself temporarily disabled. I had traveled to Ohio for my first UU General Assembly, and I suddenly found myself with a back problem that made the trip from my hotel 2 blocks away from the convention center almost impossible. I had seen a booth marked accessibility, and it was surrounded by a fleet of pretty enticing wheelchairs. But my pride was having a hard time accepting that I couldn't just take 4 Motrin, get a good night's sleep, and wake up in the morning feeling better. After spending 24 hours painfully dragging myself through the convention center, I realized that at this rate, I wasn't going to access any of the programs I was actually at GA to attend. And I made my last stop of that day at that booth. A smiling and accommodating woman behind the table promptly found me a power chair to borrow for the rest of GA, and my conference was saved. Newly free to roam, I opened up my brochure and I tried to decide what I would attend. I saw a familiar symbol on one of the workshops, and it was an event starting soon. It was the one I had seen on that booth, the miracle booth that saved my conference. The workshop was titled AIM, the Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry. And so, reading little more than the title and full of gratitude for the wheelchair, I headed in that direction. And as I made my way toward the room, I realized I was part of this great migration of wheelchairs and scooters and canes and rolling walkers all heading towards the same place. And I have to tell you, I was a bit taken aback. Because despite the fact that I was actually in a wheelchair, when I think of inclusion, I think of my son and his ability to access educational opportunities, not really of myself. So I stopped at the door and I asked a greeter there, when you mean accessibility, do you really also mean inclusion? And she looked me in the eyes and she gently pushed my arms even further apart and she said, we mean inclusion. I will admit, I went into the room and I spent the next 2 hours feeling just a little bit smug, because what I heard a lot of were from churches that had been the test congregations for this UUA program, and the bulk of their talk were about historic or repurposed buildings and the staggering cost of installing elevators and widening doorways and ramps. We mostly have that. So during the Q&A, I asked again, I don't know anything about this program. We are lucky to have a new accessible building. What is there in AIM for us? One of the trial churches immediately chimed in with how they believed they had increased access to their services and programs. How when they opened themselves up to really hearing from people, current members and former members came back and said, I don't know if I told you, I really couldn't hear the service. My daughter needed an aide in RE, and I didn't realize I could ask for that. I need a chair with arms in the sanctuary because I couldn't stand up on my own, and it was so embarrassing. My son really needs to move the entire service, and I wanted to make sure people didn't think he was rude when he got up and left. And at this point, an enormous sigh went around that room, and we were all a little quiet, because I think a lot of us were suddenly thinking about what it really means to be inclusive, but also about all the people we might have lost over the years because we weren't. So who are we losing from our congregations when we don't make it abundantly clear that we are willing to listen and try? That inherent worth is more than just words we're teaching our children, and that we are serious here about inclusion. As Dr. King said, it really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one destiny affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality. Now, if you are able and comfortable, please rise to sing hymn number 1053. If someone near you remains seated, please make sure they can see the projected words as well. I was having one of those weeks when everything was getting done just before it burst into flames. And from the way you look, I know you know exactly what those weeks are like, right? So when a fellow committee member quite innocently texted me and asked if maybe I could show up 30 minutes early to meet about an entirely different matter before our meeting, I may have been a bit terse with them. Well, if you are able to research some meaningful quotes to open and close the support group for caregivers of people with special needs, sure, I can give you 30 minutes. Imagine my surprise, an hour later, when I opened my email and found this. I have found the perfect reading for you. It's called Welcome to Holland.
Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley. I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it feels. It's like this. When
comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." "Holland," you say. "What do you mean, Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life, I've dreamed of going to Italy." But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy, but after you've been there for a while, you catch your breath, you look around, and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, and Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, "Yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned." And the pain of that will never, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a very, very significant loss. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to go to Italy, you might never be free to enjoy the very special and very, very lovely things about Holland.
I hate that story. Made all the worse by the fact that I may have actually said to the person who sent it to me, "I hate that story." You know what my life sometimes feels more like?
Welcome to Beirut by Susan Rutsidlow. Starting with a diagnosis for which there is no cure, only management and treatment, it feels like someone has thrown a bag over your head and kidnapped you, taking you to the middle of a war zone. You are terrified and have no idea what will happen to you. You find yourself in Beirut, a place you've never been. You are unable to speak the language, and you don't know what to do next. As you exist in your new world, you find yourself coping. But then suddenly things can change, and you could easily be wounded from a stray bullet. There are always quiet moments in the war when things feel somewhat peaceful, and you make the best of these times because you know the war could flare back up at any moment.
I think that version is more likely to feel accurate to what many people feel as they begin to try to navigate this world. Getting the proper medical, therapeutic, and educational interventions can be a constant, exhausting battle for not only those experiencing the condition, but for their caregivers as well. Spend some time with a group of parents who caregive children with special needs, and you will hear more war stories involving bodily fluids than you may have ever known existed. Now, some of my struggles came because it is hard to ask others for help. It's hard. You all know I'll ask for help in planning the art show. It's coming up sooner than you think. I'll ask for money to help install a fabulous hearing system for our sanctuary or upgraded folding chairs. But asking that people eat at the same tedious but allergy-safe restaurant, come to your home instead of theirs all the time, or please to invite my child to your child's birthday party, those are hard. And they are so often met with complete indifference that you grow a bit numb and weary over time in the asking. I will say that here, in our shared space, things have been different. Mason is loved here. This community has been so good to him over the past 14 years. And partially it's because I've learned to ask for help, but largely because so very many of you have stepped up and offered without me having to ask. So thank you. Thank you. So what I'm asking now, what we are asking, is that we expand that circle And we have practiced aspects of it over the years: welcoming congregation, radical hospitality, circle suppers. They all have aspects of what AIM is asking us to do, but we're pushing it further. AIM asks us to take a very deliberate look at our church and to identify any aspects of our building and events that may limit access or keep individuals from being included at all times. I'll tell you what, sometimes we are going to fail spectacularly. We are going to miss things. We are going to try really, really hard and fall short of the mark. Then we're going to listen, really listen, and we're going to try again.
This ain't coming from no prophet, just an ordinary man. When I close my eyes, I see the way this world shall be when we all walk hand in hand. When the last child cries for a crust of bread, when the last man dies for the words that he said, when there's shelter over the poorest head, we shall be free. When the last thing we notice is the color of skin, when the first thing we look for is the beauty within, when the skies and the oceans are clean again, we shall be free. We shall be free. We shall be free. Stand straight, walk proud. We shall be free. When we're free to love anyone we choose, when this world's big enough for all different views, when we all can worship from our own kind of view, we shall be free, yeah. We shall be free. We shall be free. Hell
Thanks, guys. That's so good.
The AIM ministry isn't about addressing and fixing all problems all at once. It's about understanding where we are on our journey toward inclusion and accessibility and working together to the best of our ability with the knowledge we have at our disposal to address concerns.
Now, officially, the way this process is supposed to work is that we complete those surveys. So, you know, the surveys that we emailed to all the committees, and if you don't know what those surveys are, come and talk to me afterwards. But I know we've spoken to some of you, and I know you're working on them. And we take those surveys with all of your ideas, and we compile it into a grand and glorious plan, and then, after we've sent that all off to the UUA, do we start implementing all these amazing changes. Those of you who know me may know that I am absolutely horrible at waiting. Kristen, Steve, are you any good at waiting?
No.
No, we're horrible at waiting. It turns out none of us are really good at waiting.
Truth to tell, we already had some of this in the works. For years, our program has offered support to students who require a classroom aid. We installed lighting on our sign and new drainage in front of the building to improve safety while entering our parking lot and on our sidewalk. But when we started using the AIM materials as a guide, we quickly identified projects that we could address right here and now. Should we really wait to work on a system that allows people with hearing disabilities to participate more fully in the service when we could work on it now?
All we did was quietly put the word out, with permission from the board, of course. And people stepped up to be a part of purchasing a new updated hearing assist system for our sanctuary. When people were asking if they were allowed to use our bathrooms, should we really put off hanging appropriate signage? It is, quite frankly, a little ridiculous that we have never had high chairs available in our social hall. Parents and babies love parties too. At the request of one member, we provided unscented hand soap in our bathrooms, and you would not believe how many times we have been thanked for that tiny little change.
The buzzing of the lights in the lower level were causing sensory problems for some folks using those rooms, and the older bulbs were replaced with LED tubes to eliminate the buzz and provide friendlier, more efficient lighting. Fellowship is talking about how to address food labeling to help those with allergies at social events. Our ministerial intern has a plan in place to start an online support group for church members who may have difficulty accessing traditional support groups.
The way you have all responded, both those who have come forward to offer us suggestions and those who have already donated time and money to initiate projects, tells us that we are ready for this. And that, minus that pile of paperwork that we need to send off to the UA, we are already well on our way. If you are able and comfortable, please rise to sing hymn number 396. Martha's going to give you a little direction here.
Through one time, and then we're all going to sing it together. Kristen and I will sing it together with you. Then we're going to do it as a very short round. People on Kristen's side, follow Kristen. People on my side, follow me. And it'll all be fabulous and you'll love it.
I know
In 1968, Martin Luther King announced that the Poor People's Campaign would culminate in a march on Washington to demand $12 billion, a $12 billion economic bill of rights, which guarantees employment to the able-bodied, income to those unable to work, and an end to housing discrimination. He continued to promote nonviolent protests and civil disobedience as a means to bring awareness of many injustices to the forefront. During a live television interview, Dr. King was asked very pointedly, "What gives you the right to break laws, and how do you decide which laws should be abided and which laws are to be broken?" And without pause, Martin answered that any law that is so unjust that you're willing to go to jail for it is a law that should be broken. He further explained that laws that denied a person equal treatment, equal access, and equal opportunity are unjust laws. Martin said that sometimes this is the only way to be heard. And with that, I think back to the story about Gerald and Piggy and speaking out and being heard. We need to speak out to let leaders know what our needs are. But I feel even stronger that our leaders, they need to reach out and ask us what we need. Our elected officials, the ones who are the lawmakers, should be listening to the people about what our needs are as a society, and not deciding what is best for us based on what they think it should be. Say that you walked into your bank and you were asking to withdraw $200 from your well-funded account, but the teller decided you only need $5 and wouldn't budge from his opinion. Would you continue doing business there? The people who serve us should be listening to what our needs are and making adjustments, if at all possible. But we, as a beloved community, need to speak up and let the leaders know what we need. Elephant needed to be heard, but he also needed to speak up so that others knew what he needed. Piggy wanted to celebrate her heritage and have her friends join too, but that didn't mean that her friends had to be pigs. Leadership in our church is asking, what do you need so that you feel included in this community? They have been making change based on what they think is needed from their personal experience regarding accessibility and inclusion. But they need to hear from you too. This process of hearing from you is much easier than having you boycott the restrooms and walk the lines, protest lines, until unscented soap is supplied for washing your hands. All of the work that Martin Luther King did was about being heard and creating inclusion, access, and equality. All of the work by the activists for disability rights was about being heard and creating inclusion, access, and equality. The work of the AIM Task Force is about listening and creating inclusion, access, and accessibility within our church community. So in a moment, we're going to be taking an offering, which we used to fund the Tom Galloway Scholarship, which provides scholarships to students of color attending the College of DuPage. Tom Galloway was a longtime member of this church and past president before his untimely death. Today, we have a representative for a scholarship representative, and I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us about the recipient.
Thank you so much.
Oh, let me add, if you are writing a check, write Tom Galloway in the memo line. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Yashika Weeks, and I am a fundraiser with the College of DuPage Foundation. First and foremost, I want to thank each of you for the opportunity to be here to thank you personally for continuing to support the Tom Galloway Scholarship. It is through you that Tom's memory and legacy continues to live on through the support of students. In addition to that, some of you may have heard from our student at our 9:30 service, Robert Baton. On behalf of Robert, who was here at 9:30, and students who have been here in the past, I know this is my 5th time here, so I've brought a few students in the past few years. I just want to, I guess, reiterate some of the lyrics from this song you just heard. You're not just taking up a collection today. You're unfurling wings, and you're letting roses open. So just to give you an update on some of the students whom you've met in the past, some of you, actually I was asked about it during the break between services. One student of Haitian descent, Zaki Salange, some of you may have remember him. He was a 2-time recipient of the scholarship. Zaki is proudly a junior at the University of Iowa studying engineering. And we have another student who was here with me just last year. Her name is LaWanda McCraney. LaWanda is now a junior at Roosevelt, and I want to share an email she just sent to me last week. And she didn't know I was coming this week, unless she remembered on her own. She said, I have great news to share with you, Mrs. Weeks. I have been invited by the Roosevelt University to apply for a scholar program that focuses on preparing juniors and seniors for graduate school, and very specifically for those who wish to obtain doctorates. So I just want to share with you that your investment today is not just for today at COD, but you're investing in these students' lives. And what you're doing today means so much more than just money and so much more than just 2 years at COD, but it's an investment in their future, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
We are now going to take the offering, and rather than offertory music, we have an offertory video that shares the story of climbing the Capitol steps, which was the final straw that helped to get the American with Disability Act, ADA, signed back in 1990.
When it stalled, did they think that, well, maybe we did need some more aggressive type action because our political lobbying just wasn't working? I mean, we were sort of the crazy ant in the attic.
Bob Kafka called me. He said, Senator, he says, you better be watching TV tonight. And I said, why is that? He said, watch the news. He said, we're going to help you get your bill. We're going to help you. I said, all right, what are you guys doing?
The night before, they asked for volunteers to, crawl up the steps, And I thought it was a great idea. Some people were really against it. They thought that it would be really demeaning to see a bunch of disabled people crawling up steps, But my feeling on it was that it was really demeaning the way the country was treating disabled people anyway.
We're going to march until Congress starts listening to us. They're stalling the bill that's going to give us equal rights, and we aren't asking for civil rights. We're demanding them, and now.
So why not let them see some reality? See what people have to do in order to get to the top of the building, I just remember the night before, just all these ideas going through my head, like all the years of fighting for disability rights, all the meetings. And it was this big moment where I was going to be able to release all this energy by crawling up these steps. I probably about the same weight I am now, you know, so I'm not in that great a shape, you know, so there's 100 steps, you know. And there was this little girl, was right ahead of me, you know. And I said, oh my gosh, this little girl is gonna, she has cerebral palsy. This little girl is gonna climb up the steps ahead of me and I'm not gonna be able to make it. And she's gonna make me look really stupid, you know.
Hey, come on, Jennifer. Hey, come on, girl.
So of course the cameras were on her, but they were on me right below her. So I couldn't stop, you know.
As a matter of fact, several senators were furious because look at those folks. They're obstructing, they're in our way, they're making fools of themselves and so forth. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Because it inconvenienced these senators. You know what? This was the way our people lived every day. And they were inconvenienced for a few moments. Pardon me. It had the impact. It had the social impact that we wanted.
So, what's next? We are still working with committees to identify concerns they feel they might need to address or bigger problems that might take the congregation working together to solve. Today, in your order of service, you will find an insert that asks you to share your thoughts on how we might improve accessibility and inclusion for you. And I have to tell you, we got a couple of really good ones that maybe we should have caught before this, during the first service. And the stewards don't know this, but I'm asking the stewards to please get those from people on the way out, if you can. So my personal favorite thing on this wish list is an accessible patio out our back door. When the service ends and people are let out our back door, or we hold a social event that spills outdoors, everyone should be able to take part. We're in the midst of developing an emergency operations plan that includes how we address the need to assist and evacuate members who may have special needs and may not be able to leave the sanctuary on their own without the elevators working. We're talking about a communication plan that includes contacting participants who don't have ready access to email or text. But mostly, we need to be open to having these continuing conversations about how people are able to access our services and events. Much like Elephant and Piggy, we need to take the time to have conversations about what makes us feel excluded and see if we can address them. We need to step into each other's worlds. Earning the AIM certification isn't the end of something for us. It's the beginning of an ongoing church-wide conversation.
Don't go changing to try to please me. You never let me down before. Don't imagine you're too familiar, and I don't see you anymore. I would not leave you in times of trouble. We never could have come this far. I took the good times, I take the bad times. I'll take you just the way you are. Don't go trying some new fashion. Don't change the color of your hair. You always have my unspoken passion, although I might not seem to care. I don't want clever conversation. I never want to work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I want you just the way you are. I need to know that you will always be the same old someone that I knew. Oh, what will it take till you believe in me the way that I believe in you? I said I love you, that's forever. This I promise from the start. I could not love you any better. I love you just the way you are. All right. To work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I want you just the way you are.
Martin Luther King once said, "We must work on two fronts. On the one hand, we must continue to resist the system, which is the basic cause of our lagging standards. On the other hand, we must work constructively to improve standards themselves. There must be a rhythmic alteration between attacking the causes and healing the effects. Please turn and greet your neighbors around you. Join us for coffee and conversation in our social hall, and thank the band, Karen, Jim, Chris, Tom,